Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. A millionaire followed his black employee after work. What he discovered changed everything. New York, late afternoon. The sky above Manhattan was gently burning, like a canvas painted in shades of gold, pink, and purple. The sun was setting behind the towering skyscrapers, casting long shadows across the busy streets. On the 43rd floor of the glass and steel tower that housed Bradford Enterprises, the atmosphere was silent, almost solemn. The fluorescent lights in the offices were coming on one by one, while most of the employees had already left the premises, eager to return to their lives outside. In his vast, minimalist office with walls decorated with modern works of art, Charles Bradford, the 40-something CEO with impeccable looks, gazed out at the city through the panoramic window. His face, lined by years of effort and difficult decisions, expressed a slight fatigue, but also an unusual concentration. For several weeks, a persistent thought had troubled him, a silent curiosity that prompted him to look at his daily surroundings differently. He had noticed, among the multitude of employees and visitors, a man whose presence was never loudly felt, but who gave off a singular aura. Darnell Johnson, a maintenance worker, had something Charles couldn't ignore. Every day, he saw him work with a rigor and meticulous care, far beyond what was expected of him. He wasn't just a man who swept the halls or emptied the trash. No. He was a man who took care of his work like a passionate craftsman, respecting every detail, every corner. Charles thought back to the many times he'd seen him greet colleagues with a rare politeness, a simple hello, spoken with a discreet warmth that briefly brightened the dull office routine. He also remembered the day Darnell, unprompted, had picked up a leaflet that had fallen to the floor, folding it carefully before putting it back in place. An almost noble humility, which contrasted sharply with the often cold and competitive atmosphere of the company. But tonight, as the golden light of the setting sun bathed the entire tower, Charles felt a strange mixture of admiration and questioning. Why did this simple maintenance worker attract so much of his attention? Why did this unassuming man inspire in him a kind of respect he had rarely accorded to anyone in his business world? An impulse, almost a premonition, crossed his mind. And against all logic, he made a decision he never would have thought possible. He was going to follow Darnell out the door, to understand who he really was, beyond the uniform and the role assigned to him. Darnell left the building in the last glimmers of twilight. The chill was beginning to creep into the air, but he moved at a leisurely, almost meditative pace. He crossed the main street, past a cafe that was closing its doors, and headed for the nearby subway station. The dull thud of the arriving subway echoed through the tunnel as he descended the stairs with his worn bag slung over his shoulder. For his part, Charles Bradford started his elegant car, aware of the contrast between this luxury vehicle and the atmosphere of the neighborhood he was about to pass through. He kept a reasonable distance, careful not to attract attention. The journey quickly took them away from the glittering heart of Manhattan, toward streets where the buildings were lower, the facades marked by time, the storefronts more modest. The light from the street lamps, sometimes flickering, cast uncertain shadows on the sidewalk. Darnell got off at the Brooklyn station and walked for several minutes. The silence of the dawning night was punctuated by the steady sound of his footsteps on the asphalt. The streetlights, some of them failing, cast a dim, flickering light. Graffiti, witnesses to so many stories, covered the walls. He stopped in front of an old building with peeling walls, its paint peeling like forgotten memories. A worn wooden door, adorned with a simple sign announcing Jefferson Community Center, opened beneath his hand. Charles parked his car at a distance, his heart pounding. He slipped into the shadows, quietly stepping inside, guided by low voices and muffled laughter. The room he discovered was simple, almost austere. The heating was on weakly, leaving a slight chill in the air. But the energy it emanated was palpable. Around a circle, about 15 children of all ages and backgrounds listened attentively. Some held notebooks, others pencils, all captivated. Darnell stood before them, carefully tracing geometric shapes on an old, weathered whiteboard. His voice was soft, calm, and patient. He explained not only basic mathematical concepts, but also life's invisible lessons, the importance of perseverance, respect for oneself and others, and the power of hope. A little boy, his gaze a mixture of hesitation and hope, timidly raised his hand. "Mr. Johnson, can kids like us really go to college?" Darnell knelt down to be at Jaden's eye level, his eyes filled with kindness. "Yes, Jaden. But it takes work. A lot of work. You have to believe in yourself, even when no one else does. You are capable of anything. Never let anyone tell you otherwise." Charles felt a lump tighten in his throat. The man he had always considered a simple maintenance worker was in reality a beacon of hope, a passionate educator who, every night, gave his all to offer a better future to these children, often forgotten by the rest of society. This moment deeply moved him. What he had underestimated his entire life had just opened up to him, shining with a sincere and humble light. The next morning, in the vast glass hall of Bradford Enterprises, the atmosphere was different. The usual bustle of the employees mingled with an invisible, almost palpable tension. Charles Bradford, standing near the entrance, waited, a faint smile mixed with suppressed nervousness on his face. He knew this moment could change everything, for him, for Darnell, and perhaps for many others. As Darnell Johnson walked through the automatic doors, his gaze met Charles's. Surprised, he slowed his pace. The man in the impeccable suit, usually distant and unapproachable, was coming toward him with a confident but kind step. "Mr. Johnson, may I speak to you for a few moments?" Charles asked, his voice calm but firm. Darnell, wary and a little taken aback, hesitated for a moment. He wasn't used to attracting the CEO's attention, much less being summoned for a private conversation. But something in Charles's gaze prompted him to accept without a word. They rode the elevator together, silent as the floors slowly passed by. Arriving at Charles's luxurious office, Darnell sat down at the large, solid wood desk, his hands trembling slightly. Charles took a deep breath before starting the conversation. "Last night I followed you." The sentence seemed simple, almost brutal, but the sincerity in his voice softened it. Darnell remained silent, his heart pounding. "What I saw deeply touched me," said Charles. "You don't just clean floors or tidy rooms. You are an educator, a mentor, a beacon of hope for these children who often have no one to believe in them." Darnell looked down, moved but surprised. "I'd like to offer you an opportunity. Bradford Enterprises will fund an educational center for this community. We have the budget, the resources. But what we need most is a leader, someone who truly understands these children and their reality. Someone like you." Charles slid a piece of paper across the desk. "Here's an official offer. A contract to become the director of this center. You'll no longer be a maintenance worker. You'll have the means to change the lives of hundreds of children, and not just on the surface. It will be a real mission, with staff, equipment, and partnerships." Silence fell. Darnell stared at the paper, then slowly raised his head. He thought of his mother, who had worked hard to give him a decent childhood despite the difficulties. Of his brothers, who had always supported him. Of those children in the neighborhood, so often left to their own devices. A heavy responsibility weighed on his shoulders, but also an immense source of motivation. After what seemed like an eternity, Darnell smiled, his eyes shining with determination. "I accept it. I will do everything to ensure they are given a real chance. Not just promises, but results." Charles stood up and held out his hand. "Welcome to the team, Mr. Johnson. Together, we're going to make a difference." The following months were among the most demanding, yet rewarding, of Darnell's life. The project he so passionately pursued was slowly but surely taking shape. The neighborhood's decrepit old building, once abandoned and derelict, was being reborn through an ambitious renovation. Walls repainted, windows replaced, rooms redesigned, every detail counted. Charles Bradford had kept his promise. Thanks to generous funding from Bradford Enterprises, the center now had everything he had ever dreamed of: a library stocked with books, new computers lined up on sturdy tables, whiteboards, and rooms adapted to accommodate children in dignified conditions. Volunteer teachers, passionate and dedicated, had joined the adventure, coming to offer their time and knowledge without counting. For Darnell, this place was much more than an educational center. It was a sanctuary, a refuge, a space where each child could feel seen, heard, and encouraged. He spent his days juggling 1,000 tasks, organizing schedules, managing registrations, ensuring the equipment worked, but also teaching. Yes, he taught. With his calloused hands and soft voice, he imparted not only the basics of math, reading, and science, but, more importantly, life lessons. He took the time, one by one, to listen to his students' stories. Some came with still hazy dreams, others with deep wounds. He encouraged them to speak, to express their doubts, to believe in their abilities, even when the world around them seemed to want to tell them otherwise. Every week, new faces appeared. The neighborhood children, from diverse backgrounds, carrying hopes, but also fears and uncertainties, found a place of belonging there. They were no longer alone. Patiently, Darnell offered them more than lessons. He shared with them a vision of the future, a life where they could rise, succeed, and become masters of their destiny. He saw the transformation in their eyes, shyness turning into confidence, fear into curiosity, doubt into ambition. And every smile he regained, every step forward, was a victory for him, another step toward a fairer world. 2 years later, the Johnson Center for Educational Success had become much more than just a place of learning. It had transformed into a true beacon in the community, an inspiring example for other neighborhoods and even other cities across the country. This center, born from the modest ambition of one man and the unexpected support of a millionaire, now embodied the tangible hope for a better future. The children who passed through its doors each week no longer came just to attend classes, they came to dream, to build their future, to find a path that had long seemed denied them. The results were there, visible and tangible. Several of them had received prestigious university scholarships, allowing these young people from disadvantaged backgrounds to attend renowned institutions. Others had found stable jobs, and some had even undertaken their own projects thanks to the center's support. The transformation didn't just affect young people, it also impacted the entire community. Families saw their children rise, gain self-confidence, and break free from the vicious cycles of poverty and discouragement. The center became an anchor, a symbol of solidarity and collective success. Charles Bradford, who had initially followed Darnell out of simple curiosity, was now a loyal and committed ally. He supported the project not only with substantial financial resources, but also with his moral presence. He regularly came to the center, listened to the testimonies, and participated in meetings, aware that this partnership went far beyond simple patronage. It embodied a profound change, a true fight for equal opportunity. One day, while visiting the center, Charles came across Marcus, a young boy of about 10 years old, with eyes sparkling with intelligence and hope. Marcus kept a notebook filled with drawings and notes, a symbol of his progress. The boy approached Darnell with timidity and admiration, and said to him, "One day I want to be like you, Mr. Johnson." Darnell gently placed his hand on Marcus's shoulder, his eyes filled with pride and emotion. "No, Marcus. Don't be like me. Be even better." These simple words, spoken with sincerity, carried the weight of a lifetime of effort, sacrifice, but also of a shared dream, that future generations might not only equal their predecessors, but go beyond. This story is much more than an individual narrative. It is about the power of human dignity, perseverance in the face of adversity, and solidarity capable of breaking down social barriers. It reminds us that sometimes, it is those whom society believes to be invisible who hold the greatest light within. And that when recognition, trust, and resources finally arrive, everything can change, for an individual, for a community, for the world.